There is a question that escapes our lips almost instinctively when life collapses, when pain suffocates, when the unexpected crushes our plans, and when the weight of existence feels too heavy for a fragile soul to carry. It is the oldest, rawest, most human cry. Why me? Why my loss? Why my heartache? Why my betrayal? Why my sickness? Why my failure? Why my unanswered prayer? Why my suffering? Why my storm? Why my burden? Why my season of drought? This question is born from the instinct to make sense of chaos, to find reason in the wreckage, to justify the pain, to understand what feels painfully unexplainable. Yet why me rarely leads to truth. Most often, it leads to bitterness, resentment, self-pity, isolation, spiritual paralysis. Why me points inward, toward wounds, insecurity, fear, and exhaustion. Why me turns suffering into identity. Why me frames pain as punishment. Why me traps the heart in a victim posture. But there is another question, higher, deeper, older than grief itself. A question that transforms suffering into purpose. A question that transforms wounds into wisdom. A question that transforms storms into strength. It is the question every soul must eventually learn to ask. What for? Not why did this happen to me, but what is this meant to shape in me? Not why is life unfair, but what is this season preparing me for? Not why am I suffering, but what will this suffering awaken in me? Not why the pain, but what is the purpose? Why me seeks explanations. What for seeks transformation, and your life will be radically different depending on which question you choose. Why me is the question of the wounded. What for is the question of the warrior. The question you ask reveals the posture of your soul. Why me says, I feel powerless. I feel targeted. I feel victimized. I feel broken. Life is happening to me. What for says, I'm learning. I'm being shaped. I'm still standing. There is meaning hidden in this moment. Life is happening through me. The wounded ask why me. The awakened ask what for. The broken ask why me. The brave ask what for. The fearful ask why me. The faithful ask what for. Why me keeps you in the pain. What for moves you through the pain. Every person who ever rose above destruction eventually reached a moment where something shifted inside them. A moment where self-pity cracked open just enough for purpose to slip in. That moment always begins with one question: what for? Pain without purpose is cruel. Pain with purpose is transformational. Humans can endure almost anything if they understand its purpose. When suffering feels random, pointless, or cruel, it crushes the spirit. But when suffering becomes preparation, it energizes the spirit. Training hurts, but the athlete knows what for. Childbirth tears, but the mother knows what for. Forging fire burns, but the metal knows what for. Pruning cuts, but the tree knows what for. The same storm that breaks one person builds another, depending on the question being asked. Pain is inevitable. Purpose is a choice, and purpose begins not with answers, but with better questions. Why me focuses on the past. What for opens the future. Why me keeps your eyes on what happened. What for shifts your eyes toward what can happen next. Why me is anchored to the wound. What for is anchored to the possibility. Why me keeps you replaying the story. What for invites you to rewrite it. Why me looks backward. What for moves forward. The past already happened, But the meaning of the past is still being written. The moment you shift the question, the story shifts with you. Every painful moment has layers you cannot see. Yet life is not linear. It is layered like geological earth strata shaped over centuries of storms. What hurts you now may become wisdom later, empathy later, courage later, authority later, insight later, purpose later. But pain rarely reveals its purpose immediately. Some storms make sense only after the clouds part. Some wounds reveal their meaning only when they finish healing. Some delays show their value only in hindsight. Some heartbreaks protect you from futures not meant for you. Some collapses are actually foundations being dug deeper. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is meaningless, unless you choose to interpret it that way. Life does not always answer why, but it always answers what for. Eventually, why me creates resistance. What for creates surrender. When you say why me, you tighten your grip on the parts of life you were never meant to control. Resistance strengthens the pain. Surrender transforms it. What for is not passive acceptance. It is courageous surrender. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is opening up. Surrender says, I don't understand, but I trust. I don't see the purpose, but I believe in one. I'm hurting, but I'm not hopeless. I'm shaken, but I'm not destroyed. The person who asks what for becomes unbreakable, not because life gets easier, but because the soul becomes deeper. Life shapes you according to the questions you ask. Questions are chisels. They sculpt the mind. They carve the heart. They direct the spirit. Why me chisels fear. What for chisels courage. Why me shapes bitterness. What for shapes wisdom. Why me builds walls. What for builds character. Why me closes the heart. What for opens it. The questions you ask determine the person you become. Ask better questions. Become a better version of yourself. The world does not need more people asking why me. The world is full of people wounded by life, consumed by their own chaos, frozen in self-focused pain, drowning in questions that circle back to the same place. But the world desperately needs people who ask, what is this struggle preparing me for? Who am I becoming through this hardship? What strength is being forged inside me? What compassion is being born from this brokenness? What future am I being shaped to carry? What calling is being awakened? What wisdom is being carved into me? The world needs people whose pain becomes purpose, whose scars become stories, whose storms become strength, whose suffering becomes service, because those people change lives. Those people lead. Those people lead. Those people heal others. Those people rebuild communities. Those people rise above victimhood and become warriors of meaning. Your pain may not be your fault, but your purpose is your responsibility. Not all suffering is deserved. Not all pain is chosen. Not all wounds are a result of your actions. Life can be unfair. People can be cruel. Circumstances can be random, but purpose is never random. You may not control what happened, but you control who you become because of it. Why me keeps you chained to what hurt you. What for hands you the key. Responsibility is not blame. Responsibility is empowerment. It means I cannot change the past. I cannot erase the wound. I cannot undo the loss. But I can decide what this pain produces in me. I can choose to rise from it. I can allow it to transform me. I can turn it into fuel. I can extract purpose from what tried to break me. You may not be at fault for your suffering, but you are responsible for your transformation. Your calling often emerges from the pain. You didn't choose. Look closely at people who changed. The world, their strength came from scars, their empathy came from heartbreak, their leadership came from loss. Their courage came from adversity, their wisdom came from failure, their purpose came from pain. Moses' calling emerged from exile. Joseph's purpose was born in betrayal. David's courage was shaped in the wilderness. Paul's mission was forged in blindness. Jesus' salvation came through suffering. Your greatest contribution to the world may come from the very place that wounded you most. Not despite the pain, but because of it. Pain is not a detour from your purpose. Pain is often the birthplace of it. What for? Awakens the strength hidden inside you. You do not know how strong you are until strength is your only option. You do not know how deep your spirit runs until life forces you to draw from its depths. You do not know how much courage you carry until fear surrounds you. You do not know how resilient your heart is until it breaks and still beats. You do not know how powerful your soul is until darkness tries to extinguish it. What for? Unlocks the strength you didn't know you had. Strength that was waiting for the right storm. Strength that was waiting for the right heartbreak. Strength that was waiting for the right challenge. Strength that was waiting for the right season. Every difficulty reveals a version of you that peace never could. Your future depends on your willingness to re-narrate. Your pain, your story is not defined by what happened to you, but by how you interpret what happened. Pain without interpretation is trauma. Pain reinterpreted becomes transformation. Why me? Interprets pain as injustice. What for? Interprets pain as initiation. Life gives you raw material. You decide its meaning. You decide whether the wound becomes a prison, a lesson, a weapon, a burden, a catalyst, a testimony, a calling. Meaning is not found, it is formed. Formed by your courage, formed by your questions, formed by your response, formed by your willingness to see pain through a different lens. The shift from why me to what for changes everything. This shift is not small, it is seismic. It changes how you think, how you pray, how you see suffering, how you process disappointment, how you understand destiny, how you respond to storms, how you interpret delays, how you rebuild your life. It changes your entire internal architecture. Why me weakens the soul. What for strengthens it. Why me drains energy. What for energizes meaning. Why me takes your power. What for returns it. Why me focuses on the wound. What for focuses on the warrior. Why me closes the heart. What for opens it to purpose. This question, this simple shift, can transform your life from the inside out. The pain that changed you will one day help you change others. The most powerful people on earth are not the ones who avoided pain. They are the ones who transformed pain. Their stories become maps for the lost comfort, for the hurting wisdom, for the confused encouragement, for the discouraged strength, for the weak hope. For the hopeless, your pain may be personal, but its purpose is relational. You survived not just for yourself, but for the people you were called to help. One day, someone will say to you, "You have no idea how your story saved me." And in that moment, the pain that once made no sense suddenly will trade the question that keeps you broken for the one that makes you powerful. Why me is easy to ask. It is instinctive, automatic, human, but it leads nowhere. What for is harder. It requires courage, humility, wisdom, surrender, but it leads everywhere. It leads to healing. It leads to meaning. It leads to clarity. It leads to transformation. It leads to becoming someone deeper, stronger, wiser, more alive. The storm you face is not punishment. It is preparation. The wound you carry is not meaningless. It is molding you. The heartbreak you endured is not the end. It is the beginning of a new purpose. Stop asking, why me? Start asking, what for? And watch your entire life change